The following video is a real story about a New Zealand beef and sheep farming family who, in 2004, came to southwest Victoria to dairy farm. Bruce and Lynn Newton and their children, Julia, Tim, Sam and Brendan, started their dairy farm with 350 cows on 484 acres. Tim has chosen dairy farming as a career and is now married to Jess, who, with their son Jonathan, live on a newly acquired neighbouring property of 380 acres. The herd has grown to 750 cows, producing around 580 kilograms of milk solids with a split calving starting February and August. They built a 50-unit rotary in early 2008. Tim runs the herd and feeding program, while Bruce oversees staff and development of the farm. Lynn, amongst other jobs, rears calves and does the books. Jess is a newcomer to dairy farming and was hands-on prior to Jonathan's arrival. She now takes a secondary role in supporting the family business. They're assisted by 2 full-time employees as well as a part-time milker. Like any other family business that involves family members across generations, the challenges for the Newtons in planning for the future are about changes in control and ownership. For Bruce and Lynn, it's about how their inputs will change as they get older, and for Tim and Jess, it'll be about growing their stake in the business, eventually taking on all the operational responsibilities and ultimately farm ownership. This video addresses how the Newtons are going about this process and highlights some of the challenges that they face. The People in Dairy website module, Planning for the Future, has a number of tools and resources to assist dairy farm businesses with similar challenges. There are downloadable templates for documenting the way forward and examples using the Newton family for demonstrating how these can be used.
So Bruce, you and Lynn came over from New Zealand to Australia dairy farming back in 2004. Can you tell me why you thought that the move to Australia was the one you wanted?
Well, at the time we sold the farm. Tim had just finished his degree in agriculture, and we wanted to farm together as a family. We couldn't see how we could grow a family business by running a sheep and beef farm, so the logical move was to look into dairying, and Australia seemed to be the best option in that area.
Certainly there were a lot of other farmers at that time coming over from New Zealand on the back of high land prices over there. So it's certainly been a challenge for you coming over to Australia, another country, to farm and farming in a different way to what you were in New Zealand. Dairy farming is a lot more intense. How have you taken up that challenge?
I think in a sense what helped us most was the fact that I had very little experience in dairy farming. Tim had just had the theoretical background through completing a degree, and so the good thing about it is we were all involved in decision making and running it. So when we came here, we came to was 480 acres milking around 350 cows, and we upgraded to a 50 bale rotary, and since then we've bought a neighbouring farm out, so things have really gone well for us. We were lucky that we came at a time when land prices were stable in Australia, and they rose later after we arrived.
No, well that's good, and certainly Lynn, coming over at a stage in your lives where you were in your early 50s or late 40s then, and it was a big challenge with a young family, most of whom were still being educated. How do you see that the challenge has been for the family?
Well, it's made us very busy, in fact too busy. But it was at a stage where the children were at a good age. There were 2 still at school and 2 had left school, so they were sort of ready to make their own choices. I've been involved with the calf rearing, administration, doing weeds, and in a way I think we've all sort of fitted into our new roles pretty well.
So Lynn, how do you see your role changing in the future on the farm?
Well, I can see that we can't keep up this hard work forever. Our bodies, even now, are becoming less willing. Just this last year, Bruce and I, we had an overseas trip for 3 weeks, and we found that Tim and his wife Jess coped quite well. They didn't seem to have any major problems, so we can see that they will be able to fit into that role when the time arises.
It's always a big step to assume that somebody else can take on the responsibilities while you're not there, so that was a great start. So what are some of the specific responsibilities that you're hanging on to that you know over time you will probably struggle with letting go?
I'm not sure if struggle's the right word. Calf rearing probably is a big one, where I'm pretty well on my own doing that, but I know Jess is keen when the time's right. She's got a young family at the moment, but she'll be keen to come along and help with me, and then when I'm able to, I'll step back and let her take charge.
Okay, so you do step back and you have a little bit more time off the farm. What sort of plans do you envisage you and Bruce might have for the future beyond spending all the time on the farm?
I've probably got an endless list of things I'd like to do. I've got my interest in golf, taken up a bit of biking lately, and Bruce and I are pretty keen to get involved with more volunteer work. So it might be a bit of a task dragging him off the farm to start with, but I'm sure once he's off there, he'll be fine. That's
right. And Bruce, you will always find something to do on the farm, and no doubt every day there will be the potential that Tim would say to you, can you give a hand? Have you got any sense of what interest you might have beyond farming every day?
Well, I think Lynn pretty well summed it up. I'm quite content as a farmer and being involved in the farm and in some way or other. I mean, we all like to avoid the mundane work, and but farming is a seasonal job, and there are times when I realise that everyone needs to pitch in and help out. And, to me, it's just about having the balance, having a good balance to life. That as you get older, have a bit more time to spare and to do things that arise. All that I want to do.
Give you options. That's right. So Tim's obviously managing to do a lot of things on the farm, and we'll hear from Tim a bit later on what his role is. But what are some of the major responsibilities you had, as Lynn's just pointed out she had, that you will eventually need to make sure are being taken on by Tim or other people?
I think things that perhaps go in our favour is the fact that we've all made decisions together, and sometimes we'll discuss something, and often I've made a decision myself, or Tim and I have made a decision. Sometimes Lynn makes decisions concerning administration. I do a lot of the like development work on the farm or maintenance work, some of that mundane sort of doing the weeds and stuff like that, things that need to be done. Anyone can fill my shoes doing that, but I think there needs to be a transition always in decision making, and I suppose probably more than anything else I'm involved in organisation of staff or things that need to be done, and so it's that area I'd have to need to step back from that and allow Tim to do more of that. So when I'm away, that means that he's in the deep end in that area, but everywhere else he's pretty much involved in as far as the dairy is concerned and running the cows, he's involved in that, and I have to ask him about what do we do and what's the next move. So he's got all that pretty well under control.
And you've had your holiday away last year, as Lynn said, and things managed to tick along not too badly. One of the problems, of course, you have is this feeling of indispensability that eventually you need to recognise is not there. And needless to say, it's a process that over time Tim will give you more confidence that he has things under control, and it's not a matter of stepping away immediately. So, Lynn, what about the other family members? Where do they fit into the farm business at the moment?
Well, at the moment they've all pursued their own careers,
Mm-hmm.
and they're happy in doing that.
Mm.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. And down the track now, we've got a business that obviously you two own yourselves and that Tim works for you on wages, and we'll talk to Tim in a little while about how that's gone. But eventually now, do you see that the business can perhaps swing over to being one where Tim is actually one of the owners of the business? So perhaps Bruce, you can answer that. Yep.
Yeah, I don't think there's a problem in that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the hardest thing in making a transition is that it needs to be gradual.
Mm-hmm.
That the fact that he has a young family and it's the stage of life he's at, and so it's a matter of making it easier for everybody. So it's a transition that can benefit both of us.
Mm-hmm.
That we can gradually step back, but be there also when he needs help.
Mm.
So I can't see. It's just a matter of really, doing it gradually and doing it, basing it around the family situation.
Yeah. So can you just talk a little bit about the process that you're going through yourselves and any help that you're seeking on, some of the ways that you can do. So every family is different, obviously, and there's no set recipe. What process have you gone through?
Well, when we first came, obviously, we needed to start on a good basis. And as you're aware, Chris, I've always consulted you concerning setting Tim's salary, because I felt that it was important that I had an outside independent person to set a salary. And at the time we were struggling, and because we were just starting off, so Tim also wanted to build his equity up in the farm, so he's actually taken some of his wages from cows, so he owns a large proportion of the herd already, so he's making the transition into ownership
Yes.
right from the beginning at this stage already, so and that seems to be working okay.
And you've obviously had some advice from your accountant on the best way to structure the business?
That's right, yes, we before we started, we consulted him concerning how to structure it, and we ended up forming a family trust. We had the idea in mind was that it would allow us to bring Tim on board and also enable us to the best suited a family enterprise. So we've gone that way.
It's good. So, Lynn, have you, obviously all these plans are things that you share between yourselves and Tim and Jess now that she's on the scene. How do the rest of the family become involved in all of these plans?
Well, at the moment they're all pursuing their own careers, but I can see down the line if any of them did want to return to the farm, there's certainly going to be a need there, and sort of look at that when the time does arise. And
have they ever expressed any interest in knowing what you're doing in terms of the plans and the business structures? Are they aware of what you're trying to do here?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, they understand like the trust we set up originally and how it all works. Yes.
So Bruce, up to now, Tim's been employed on a salary, and he's taken the option to draw some of that salary as spending money, and some of it he's put into purchasing some of the cows in the herd. When you move into a new business structure where you and Lynn are in partnership with Tim and Jess, how do you envisage you would reward each other for your physical efforts?
I think the only way it can be done is got to be done on a commercial basis, and obviously as our inputs diminish and Tim's inputs increase, then it's got to be reflected commercially.
That's a pretty sound way of doing it. And then there's no feeling of guilt if you put in less effort and still be taking the same sort of income. So what about the land itself? Obviously you two have debt over land, as most farmers do. How will that get accounted for in the cost for the business?
Well, land is, I guess, a lot more tricky in the sense that it's part of the family trust, and it's in a sense, the security for Lynn and I. And
so you'll continue to lease the land to the business, yes?
Look at leasing it.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not going to own the land forever either, so it's got to be some stage look at the transition of passing the land on.
And as you, needless to say, there are other members of the family that become involved, and it is a bit more complicating than just being able to gift those sort of assets. In summary then, Bruce, we know that families and their pathways are sometimes quite complicated, and the outcomes aren't always as good as what we would like them to be. So what do you think are some of the keys to trying to endeavour to have the best outcome for a family like yours? What's been important for you, and what do you think will continue to be?
I think the first thing is communicating with members of the family about their wants and their needs and their desires, and then also running past consultants, accountants, and getting information. Nothing better than information, but above all else, I think as long as people communicate and deal with it, and then it's the best thing that can helps develop stronger relationships in the family.
So Lynn, it's certainly challenging to think about how the family will all be in 10 or 20 years, because there could be lots of grandchildren, and there's health issues that come up, and there's neighbouring farms that come up. But would you like to give me your view on what you think will be really important to you to make sure that the outcomes are best for everyone?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, you do, in a sense. You do, because you always said that you want to be fair, really. That's what you've already said. And you like to make sure that no one's really favoured over and above, no one child is favoured over and above another.
And I can see that that's actually very hard on a farming, where one member of the family wants ownership of the farm. It's quite hard for the other three to be treated equally. Yeah.
At the same time, I think you look at your family now, and if Tim hadn't gone to ag school and hadn't been keen to go farming, you may never have perhaps bought this farm, and you may well have stayed in New Zealand and done something else if the family wasn't interested in farming.
That's right.
So to a degree, I think it's sometimes a matter of weighing up the fact that your children give you opportunities as well as you giving them opportunities, and therefore the whole family benefits from that opportunity that you've had and the growth of your asset base from that move over to here to dairy farm. So Bruce has often said that we can't be absolutely equal in everything we do, but we can be fair, and providing opportunities for our family isn't always about just dividing up the land in equal portions and saying, take your share when you're ready. So I think the key, I think, that I see that your family does really well is just communicate, and it is never an issue of saying, let's put it off till next time, and I think you need to be commended for that, because it's great. So Tim, it was a challenge for the family coming over to farm here in Australia, and for you coming straight out of ag school, no doubt there's been a steep learning curve. How's it gone for you, dairy farming over here?
Oh, I think it's gone extremely well. It was a big learning curve to start with, coming from straight from ag school with little dairying background.
So obviously there are a lot of skills that you have been learning, but what sort of responsibilities has Bruce handed over to you?
Well, firstly, he's given me the responsibility of handling a large herd of cows, and also I've got a fair responsibility of just managing all the pastures and feeding all the cows as well. And we sort of share most of the decisions in the business together as well.
Well, that's good. So we talked earlier with Bruce and Lynn about how they structured the business and that it's a family trust, but at the moment you've been paid a commercial wage that we agreed on at the start, and because you decided that life was too hectic and busy to spend a lot of that money off farm, you've managed to invest quite a bit of that back into the farm, and so you now have some assets. How do you think that process has gone?
I think it's been good for me to invest the money back into the farm. Like it's enabled me to grow an asset reasonably quickly, and yeah, given me a good start into farming.
Oh, that's good. And look, at a time when the farm didn't really need to have a lot of extra money being spent, it's been good that you've been able to keep that money back in the farm business. So what about the future? Do you see, we've talked about how the business may well end up taking you and Jess on as partners, so that you are partners with Bruce and Lynn, and that then it would obviously be different, and we talked about how you would all be commercially rewarded. What can you see happening with your assets over the next few years?
I can see the assets, for starters, the cow numbers will increase, pretty quickly, I imagine, and then we'll continue to grow our assets and taking over a bit more of the business as the machinery and the cows together, sort of. And I can see that working quite well and enabling us to keep growing our assets quite quickly.
So Jess, it must have been quite challenging for you to come to a dairy farm business and family like this when you don't have a family background. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've travelled that journey to date and what it's been like?
Well, I think that it's been really good for me to come and live on a dairy farm. It's been a great experience. The family's really tried to get me involved in as much of the farming as they can. It has been a challenge with Tim working so hard on the farm, and we've got a young son now as well, so it's a bit of a challenge to try and balance working on the farm with bringing up our young family, and there seems to be so much work to be done on the farm all the time that it's sort of a never-ending task, and it can be a bit of a challenge at times. But
Jess, as you say, there's so much work to be done on the farm, and you have a young family now, and Tim's working most of the time. What sort of role can you see yourself having in the farm business the next few years?
Well, I think that while we've got young children, my role will be quite restricted on the farm. It's quite a challenge to feed calves and do many of the farm jobs with a young child. But I think hopefully as the children get a little bit older, Bruce and Lynn will feel more comfortable in handing over more of the roles, such as calf rearing, to Tim and I, and I'll be able to, Lynn will be able to train me up and I'll be able to take on that responsibility.
So we talked briefly to Tim about your assets, and of course it's always hard in a family business to be able to understand where all of the assets are owned and how yours and Tim's are being built up. What's your where are you at in terms of your comfort on what's happening to date?
Yeah, I think, like I've said, it is quite hard for me to understand exactly what goes on in the farm business. Coming into the family situation with Tim and Bruce and Lynn, they all seem to be pretty set in where they wanted to go with the farm, and me coming in and not having any sort of idea. Sometimes I guess I felt a bit left out, and like maybe Bruce and Lynn have a bit of control of the finances, and I'd like it to be probably a little bit less that way. But I think that Bruce and Lynn are pretty open to discussing things, and they really want the best option for everybody and for the farm business. So I think that we can come to a good decision for everybody in the end when it comes to making a final decision when they want to look at giving up more of the roles and things like that.
Yep. So talking about that, Tim, we've got Bruce obviously still really fully involved, and apart from them having 3 weeks off last year, which they said was was great to see how well the farm could continue on without them being there. But what do you see as some of the keys now that will be important for you to help Bruce especially transition out of feeling that he needs to be here all the time?
Oh, I think the key is to have probably regular labour employed, so that we've got enough people to do all the jobs without having him here pretty much, and also just for him to hand over or accept that everyone else can do the tasks just as well as he can, I guess it will be hard for him to step back because he loves it so much, I guess, and he probably enjoys more the outdoors and driving machinery and stuff like that more, but I guess it will be hard to get him off the farm entirely.
But then again, he's addressing this issue when he's only in his mid-50s, and he's still, no doubt, like anybody at that age, will think that there's still a lot more left in him, and it may well be that he's a great asset to the family business over those years. And a lot of it's about control, really, isn't it? And Jess has pointed out how at this stage there's that letting go of the complete control of all the financials, which is important. And I think, as she says, they are talking and quite open to those sorts of changes. So that's good. And all the talking that you obviously do as a family and make decisions, I can see that Bruce's role become much more strategic, and then to be that handy man and to drive that machinery. So, Tim, in 5 to 10 years, where do you see you and Jess being from a point of view of having built up some assets and what the future holds from then on?
Well, I think in 5 to 10 years' time, obviously have a very good base for owning the actual business then. At the moment I guess we nearly own half the herd, so in that time I can see us growing to being able to own the business, and if more land becomes available or some of the land here we decide to buy, I can see that we could be in that position to buy a little bit ourselves as well.
I'm sure that having listened to Bruce and Lynn and their view of how they see the family business going, that they will certainly be wanting to entertain all those sorts of things, because I think they can see that the best outcome really is one whereby the family can continue on in a business that's profitable, and that they are rewarded for what they own and their efforts, and they want you to be likewise. So I think it's really the key in a family like yours is communication, and everybody saying what their plans are, and the business making sure that all those plans can be achieved.